My dad ghosted me as revenge for my mom's affair, and now I'm stuck in the middle of their toxic drama, feeling completely abandoned. I never thought I'd be sharing something like this, but I'm at my wit's end and could really use some outside perspective. I'm 22F, and up until about 6 months ago, I thought I had a pretty normal family life. Sure, my parents argued sometimes, but what couple doesn't? They'd been married for 25 years and seemed happy enough. My dad, 52M, owns a successful construction company, and my mom, 48F, is a high school English teacher. I'm an only child and just graduated college last year. I moved back home while looking for a job in my field, marketing. Everything changed the day I accidentally discovered my mom was having an affair. I had borrowed her laptop to work on some job applications since mine was in the shop. As I was closing out of my email, I noticed she had left her personal email logged in. I know I shouldn't have looked, but a subject line caught my eye, "Missing you already." The sender's name wasn't one I recognized. My curiosity got the better of me, and I clicked on the email. What I read made my stomach drop. It was full of intimate details and inside jokes, clearly from someone my mom was romantically involved with. I quickly scanned through her inbox and found dozens of similar emails going back at least 6 months. I sat there in shock, unsure what to do. Should I confront her? Tell my dad? Pretend I never saw anything? In the end, I decided to talk to my mom first and give her a chance to come clean to dad herself. When she got home from work that evening, I asked if we could talk privately. I told her what I had found and asked how long it had been going on. She broke down crying, begging me not to tell dad. She swore it was just a stupid mistake and that she had already ended things with the other man, a colleague at her school. I was angry and hurt, but I agreed to give her 2 weeks to tell dad herself before I would say anything. Looking back, I realized this was my first mistake. I should have told him right away. Those 2 weeks were agonizing. I watched my parents go about their normal routines, all while carrying this huge secret. My mom seemed on edge, but dad didn't appear to suspect anything was wrong. The night before my ultimatum was set to expire, I overheard them arguing in their bedroom. I couldn't make out the exact words, but it was clear mom had finally come clean. There was a lot of shouting and crying. I went to bed with a knot in my stomach, dreading what the morning would bring. To my surprise, things seemed eerily calm at breakfast. Dad was quiet but civil. Mom looked like she hadn't slept. They both reassured me that everything was fine and they were working things out. I wanted desperately to believe them. For the next few weeks, life went on much as it had before. There was tension in the air, but my parents were clearly trying to keep things normal for my sake. Dad threw himself into work, while mom seemed to be walking on eggshells. I started to hope that maybe they really could move past this and save their marriage. Then came the day that turned my world upside down. I woke up to find Dad gone. At first I didn't think much of it, he often left early for work. But then I noticed things missing from the house. His favorite armchair. The vintage guitar he loved. Family photos were conspicuously absent from the walls. Mom was sitting at the kitchen table, staring blankly at a piece of paper. When I asked what was going on, she wordlessly handed it to me. It was a note from Dad. "I'm leaving. Don't try to contact me. I'll have my lawyer be in touch about the divorce. Claire, I'm sorry." I couldn't believe it. How could he just leave like that, without even saying goodbye? I tried calling his cell, but it went straight to voicemail. His company said he had taken a leave of absence. It was like he had vanished into thin air. The next few weeks were a blur. Mom alternated between fits of crying and angry tirades about what a coward Dad was. I was in shock, feeling abandoned and betrayed by both of my parents. I threw myself into my job search, desperate for a reason to get out of the house. The atmosphere was suffocating. Mom started drinking more than usual, lashing out at me when I tried to talk to her about it. I felt like I was walking on eggshells in my own home. About a month after Dad left, I finally landed a job at a marketing firm in the city. I was thrilled to have an excuse to move out. Mom didn't take it well, accusing me of abandoning her just like Dad had. I felt guilty, but I knew I needed to get away from the toxic environment for my own mental health. The night before I was set to move, I got a text from an unknown number. "I'm sorry I left without saying goodbye. I couldn't face you. I hope you can forgive me someday. I love you, Claire Bear." It was a nickname only my dad used. My heart leapt, finally, contact from him. I immediately tried calling the number, but it had already been disconnected. I was frustrated but also relieved to know he was thinking of me. I debated whether or not to tell Mom about the text. In the end, I decided to keep it to myself. Things were already so fragile between us, and I worried she might lash out if she knew Dad had reached out to me but not her. The next few months were a roller coaster. I threw myself into my new job, trying to build a life for myself away from all the drama. Mom called constantly, alternating between crying jags and guilt trips about how I never visited. Dad remained a ghost, though his lawyer was in contact with Mom about divorce proceedings. I tried everything I could think of to get in touch with Dad. I called his siblings, his friends, even some of his business associates. Everyone claimed not to know where he was. A few let slip that he had asked them not to tell me anything. That hurt more than I can express. What had I done to deserve being cut out of his life like this? About 4 months after he left, I came home to my apartment one night to find a package waiting for me. My heart raced when I saw the return address. It was from Dad. Inside was a letter in a small box. The letter read, "Claire, I'm sorry for disappearing on you. I know it wasn't fair to put you in the middle of this mess. The truth is, I couldn't bear to face you knowing what your mother had done. Every time I looked at you, all I could see was her betrayal. I know that's not rational or fair to you. You're the innocent one in all of this. But I'm not in a good place right now, and I need time to heal before I can be the father you deserve. Please don't try to find me. I'll reach out when I'm ready. I want you to know that none of this is your fault. I love you more than anything in this world. You're the best thing that ever happened to me, and I'm so proud of the woman you've become. I hope someday you can forgive me for handling things this way. I know I'm hurting you, and that kills me. But I truly believe this is what's best for now. Take care of yourself, Claire Bear. I love you always. Dad." I must have read the letter a dozen times, tears streaming down my face. I felt a confusing mix of emotions, relief at finally hearing from him, anger at being abandoned, sadness at the pain he was clearly in. The box contained a delicate silver locket. Inside was a tiny photo of me as a baby with Dad. On the back was engraved, "Forever my little girl." I put the necklace on and haven't taken it off since. It's my one tangible connection to my father. That letter was 3 months ago. I still haven't heard anything more from Dad. Mom's drinking has gotten worse, and she's on the verge of losing her job. She refuses to consider rehab or therapy. Every conversation with her turns into a guilt trip about how I've chosen Dad's side by moving out. I feel like I'm being torn in two. I'm angry at Mom for having the affair that destroyed our family. But I'm also furious at Dad for abandoning me along with her. I didn't ask to be put in the middle of their mess. I've started seeing a therapist to try and work through all of this. She's been helpful, but there's still a long way to go. Some days I feel like I'm making progress, and other days it's like I'm right back in the depths of despair. I guess I'm posting this because I don't know what else to do. How do I move forward when both of my parents have let me down so completely? How do I build a relationship with my mom when she refuses to address her issues? And how do I reconcile my love for my dad with the pain of his abandonment? If you've made it this far, thank you for reading. Any advice or words of support would be appreciated. I feel so lost and alone. Edit. Wow, I didn't expect this post to blow up like it has. Thank you all so much for the kind words and advice. I'm trying to respond to comments, but there are so many. I'll do my best to answer the most common questions here. 1. Yes, I've considered reaching out to Dad's lawyer to try and get a message to him. I'm torn about whether I should respect his wishes for space or push harder to reconnect. 2. I know Mom needs help, but I can't force her into rehab. I've tried talking to her about it, but she gets defensive and angry. I'm looking into Al-Anon meetings for myself to learn how to better cope with her addiction. 3. A lot of people have asked if I'm in contact with any other family members. Unfortunately, both of my parents were only children, and all my grandparents have passed away. I have a few cousins, but we've never been particularly close. 4. To those suggesting hiring a private investigator to find Dad, I've considered it, but I'm not sure I'm ready to take that step. Part of me feels like it would be a violation of his privacy and wishes. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't tempted. 5. Thank you to everyone sharing similar stories. It helps to know I'm not alone in dealing with this kind of family drama. I'm sorry so many of you have been through similar pain. I'll try to keep updating as things develop. Again, thank you all for the support. It means more than you know. Edit 2. I can't believe it's been almost 2 months since I made this post. So much has happened, I felt like I owed you all an update. The biggest news, I've seen my dad. It wasn't the reunion I had hoped for, but at least it's something. About 3 weeks ago, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, I was shocked to hear Dad's voice. He said he was in town for a few days on business and asked if we could meet for coffee. My hands were shaking as I got ready to see him. I didn't know whether to hug him or yell at him. In the end, I did a bit of both. When I saw him sitting in the cafe, I was struck by how much older he looked. His hair had more gray, and there were new lines around his eyes. He stood up when he saw me, arms outstretched for a hug. I surprised myself by bursting into tears and clinging to him like a little kid. We talked for hours. He apologized again for cutting me off, saying he had convinced himself it was for my own good. He's been in therapy and realized how much he was hurting me in the process of trying to hurt Mom. I told him everything, how abandoned I felt, how angry I was at both of them, how Mom's drinking has spiraled out of control. He listened without interrupting, tears in his eyes. He's living in another state now, trying to build a new life for himself. He asked if I would be open to staying in touch and slowly rebuilding our relationship. I said yes, but made it clear that he can't just disappear on me again if things get tough. We've texted a few times since then. It's awkward and there's clearly a lot of work to be done, but it's a start. As for Mom, things have gotten worse. She lost her job last month and has been on a near constant bender ever since. I finally reached my breaking point and called for an intervention with the help of her closest friend and her sister. It didn't go well. Mom accused us all of conspiring against her and stormed out. She hasn't been answering my calls or texts for over a week now. I'm terrified something has happened to her, but I don't know what else to do. I'm trying to take things one day at a time. My therapist has been a lifeline through all of this. I'm focusing on my job and my own mental health as much as I can. Thank you all again for the support and advice you've given me. It's been a long road, and I know there are still challenges ahead. But for the first time in months, I feel a glimmer of hope that things might eventually be okay. I'll update again if there are any major developments. Wishing you all the best. Final edit. I honestly never expected to be making another update to this post, but here we are. It's been just over a year since my original post, and I felt like I owed it to all of you who have followed my story to share where things stand now. First, the good news: I'm doing better. A lot better, actually. Therapy has been incredibly helpful, and I've made some wonderful friends through a support group for adult children of alcoholics. I've been promoted at work and even started dating someone new. For the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm building a life I can be proud of. Now for the more complicated updates. Dad and I have slowly been rebuilding our relationship. We text regularly and have video calls every couple of weeks. He's still living out of state, but he came to visit me a few months ago. It was good to spend time together, even if things aren't quite back to how they used to be. He's promised to be more present in my life, and so far he's keeping that promise. Mom. Well, that's a more difficult story. Her drinking continued to get worse after my last update. There were a few scary incidents, a DUI, a trip to the ER for alcohol poisoning. I was at my wit's end trying to help her while also protecting my own mental health. The turning point came about 4 months ago. Mom got into a car accident while drunk. Thankfully, no one was seriously hurt, but it was the wake-up call she needed. She finally agreed to go to rehab. She's been sober for 3 months now. It hasn't been easy, and I know she struggles every day, but I'm so proud of the progress she's making. We're slowly working on rebuilding trust between us. I'm cautiously optimistic, but I'm also trying to keep realistic expectations. Mom and Dad have had some limited contact through their lawyers as they finalize the divorce. It's been tense, but they're both trying to keep things civil for my sake. I don't think they'll ever be friends, but at least they've stopped using me as a pawn in their drama. I've learned a lot about setting boundaries and taking care of myself through all of this. I'm not responsible for my parents' happiness or sobriety. I can support them, but their choices are their own. It's been a hard lesson, but an important one. To everyone who has followed my story and offered support along the way, thank you, from the bottom of my heart. Your kind words and advice have meant more than you know. This community has been a lifeline during some of my darkest moments. I don't know what the future holds, but I feel more equipped to handle whatever comes my way. If my story has helped even one person feel less alone in dealing with family drama, then sharing it has been worth it. Wishing you all the very best. Take care of yourselves, and remember, it's okay to put your own oxygen mask on first.